I used to geocache, but after what I found this last time, I'm deleting the app and never geocaching again. By Let's Split Up. My friend Ahmed and I met through geocaching. We used to joke that we couldn't have been more opposite if we tried. Our world's so different, it was like a bird from the sky talking to a fish from the sea. Who was the bird and who the fish changed depending on context. We bonded over a particularly difficult cache. It turned out to have been washed away by a storm, and soon our expeditions together were the highlight of my week. But our lives got busy. He had kids, I had my career. Once a week became once a month, then only an occasional thing, and we dropped out of touch. Once COVID hit, I got laid off. Messaged Ahmed to see if he'd be up for geocaching since it's one of the activities one can do outdoors during the pandemic. He went geocaching a couple of times with me, wearing his little daughter Ayan on his back. Adorable, but it did limit how long he and I could be out hiking. And then life got busy again. Anyway, the reason I'm writing this post is that recently I hit another hard point in my life. I came out to my girlfriend's family, thought they'd be accepting, only to be bombarded with snide remarks about my pronouns, not to mention the constant misgendering. My girl kept telling me to stop acting like it was such a big deal. So I went back to my old escape, pulled up the app, started walking, looking for caches, letting my mind drift and my legs carry me, anything not to have to think. Going more and more remote after I found all the geocaches in my area. I even messaged Ahmed, though he didn't respond. Bitterly, I thought perhaps he wouldn't accept me now, which is unfair of me. He was deeply religious and a conspiracy theorist, and I'm a pink-haired punk atheist. But we talked deeply and always found common ground. Anytime I jumped to assumptions about him, he'd prove me wrong. He said the same about me. I tried making new friends in the geocaching community. I went with a group once, went another time with some gal named Debbie and her daughter, but just didn't feel that connection. Maybe it's the place I am in life. There was one name that kept showing up on the logs, Ahmed's. And at first I was excited, my old friend back in the game. But when I messaged, his reply disappointed me. Sorry, Blake, can't. Life, you know. And then a few minutes later, try this one. He sent me a link to a specific cache. It was marked with the highest difficulty. I went out there, but couldn't find it. This seemed another washed away in a storm scenario, and I told him so in messages. He told me to keep looking. I finally asked if he could give me a hint, anything, but all he said was to keep on, and after an hour, frustrated, I called it quits. After that, I tried reaching out again to ask him to come geocaching with me, but he had the same excuse, life, you know. But I kept seeing his name on the log sheets. I became obsessed, told myself I would get to a cache before him. He'd been to every single one that I'd found, even as I was going to more remote locations from our usual stomping grounds. How are you doing this? Have you hit every single cache? Keep looking. Are there any you haven't found? Keep looking. Keep on, friend. How about I come with you on the next one you do? It's been too long. Honestly, I could use your advice. Sorry, Blake. Can't. Life, you know. Kids keeping you busy? How's Ayan doing? Walking now. Daddy's so proud. I stared at the text, puzzled, feeling a slight chill. She learned to walk during the pandemic in 2020, 4 years ago. All right, for real, what's going on, man? Keep looking. So I went out, opened the app, and searched for some caches I hadn't been to yet, ones further out. So remote, it wasn't the sort Ahmed would usually go for now that he had kids. Still, my old friend had already marked it. This time, though, I took notice of the date, 20th of May, 2024. I went for another one nearby, this one an easy find in my picnic area. It was the same. Ahmed had marked it for exactly the same date. The next one too. In fact, all the caches I found, even ones I'd found back in our city where we lived, all had the same date. I know, because I went and double-checked. All the 20th of May of this year, the same day he'd started messaging me after ghosting me for weeks. But he couldn't have found them all in a single day. Impossible. No matter how much he trekked around, there was just too many to mark. I was deeply chilled now, terrified. And then my phone pinged with another message. It was Ahmed. Keep looking. What else could I do? In some ways it was like old times, a treasure hunt. There was something I had to find. A cache. The only cache he hadn't found first. There had to be one. And then I remembered the impossible cache, the one he'd sent me the link to that I hadn't been able to find. I went back there, messaged him. Is this the one? Keep looking. Again, I hunted up and down. The sun was sinking lower in the sky. I couldn't find anything out here in these woods. It should have been right here by the trail, shouldn't it? I threw my hands up in surrender, and since the sun was looking beautiful over the rocky bluffs, I went ahead and started climbing the rocks upwards, thinking to clear my head a bit. Keep looking. The hairs on my arms prickled as I stared at the message. I climbed further but got nothing, so then I hiked downwards along the slope, deeper into the wooded undergrowth. Keep looking. Deeper still. The sun had lowered enough that the long shadows stretched like skeletal fingers had now become a blanket of shadow, and there was a chill in the air, and the smell of wet earth, leaves, that fetid reek of damp earth, and something else. Every now and then, a faint, unpleasant undertone. Ahmed didn't do social media. One of his conspiracy theories was about how much data these companies collect on you to use for nefarious purposes. Actually, that's less conspiracy theory than truth, I suppose, but one I ignored, whereas he angrily sought to thwart their efforts to spy on him. But he had family members on Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram, surely. I should reach out, I thought. Should search for them. Maybe they'd posted something of what's going on. He'd mentioned a sister once, Saras. I searched for her and found her on Facebook. My phone pinged as I slowly stepped further down the slope. Keep looking. The earthy smell was stronger now. I opened Saras' page. Unlike her brother, she posted often online. I had started to scroll, but not too far before I started seeing the posts. My brother is still missing. Please pray for him to be found. Keep looking. From the posts on Saras' page, it looked like he'd been struggling. There'd been a whole lot he hadn't shared with me recently. We'd hardly seen each other after all. Apparently he and his wife were separated. Wow. His sister worried he'd done something maybe, that he might hurt himself. The Ahmed I knew would never have considered it, but how much did I really know him? We were geocaching buddies, that was all. And yet in my heart, I couldn't believe he'd do something like that. Not while his daughter was alive. Not while... Friend. Sorry, Blake. I stopped as my boot crunched on something. Looked down with a gasp. Just a plastic bottle. My heart relaxed, but then I noticed something else. In the dim light of dusk, I turned on my phone's flashlight to see better and swept along the shaded undergrowth. And there was a flash of blue from a jacket, hidden now by leaves in the undergrowth. jacket, an arm, a hand. And now I noticed the smell. And now again, I noticed the smell. When I tried later to show Ahmed's family the messages on my phone, I couldn't find any, nor did any of the caches still have Ahmed's name in the logbook. It was like I'd hallucinated all of it. But based on the state in which he was found, authorities believe Ahmed was hiking the trail, went climbing along the rocky cliffs, and fell, hit his head, lost his phone. Injured and disorientated, he didn't make it back to the trail. Crucially, their findings showed that he had not taken his own life. He'd just been doing what I was doing, out in the woods, sorting out his shit, geocaching. And then, when he wanted to keep climbing, to work off some of that frustration and uncertainty, he slipped. He needed his family to know what happened to him, that he hadn't intentionally left them, hadn't intentionally left her, his daughter. He needed her to know. There's one more thing. I gave up geocaching after that, got back to life, but after I broke up with my girlfriend, I finally opened the app again because I was just feeling so low, trying to run from the world. And when I opened it, I saw he sent me one more message, urging me away from the dark thoughts bubbling in my brain. Keep on, friend. I just want to thank Let's Split Up for allowing me to narrate that story. If you liked what you heard here, head over to their Reddit page and show them some love. I'll leave a link for the original story in the description below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and as always, stay tuned for one more nightmare.